So everybody will tell you, be musical, be relaxed, play for the music, whatever the hell that means, There's a lot of words, but not really meaning inside of the words. I don't want to, use this occasion you guys are giving me to do like many people do, come here and say, this is how I think and this is the right thing. So I don't want to, I'm not here to sing my song really, but I'm here to, of course say what I think. But I do think, with all due respect for everybody else, that there's a lot of misunderstandings, especially in the teaching aspect. Many teachers, I don't agree with what they do. Regardless of how good they are as players, it's not a matter of how good they play, because actually some of the worst teachers are some of the best players. Why? Because they are very talented, and they think everybody else is like them, or they can relate to everybody else. They don't know what it means to not be that talented. They don't know what it means to have a brain that is not functioning so well, or a body that is not functioning so well, and all that. So, in order to develop ourselves as self-teachers, teaching ourselves, because we are, even people that study with everybody, we are really self-taught. Because when you're home, you're teaching yourself. The teacher once a week says, oh, what are you doing, but you're home and you take the decisions on what to do. If you're not aiming toward the right direction, studying 8 hours a day is not gonna do it. I always use a metaphor, which is, if I'm driving the most amazing Ferrari car, just bought from a store, €1 million, and I'm really cool, and I want to go to Venice, but I take the highway to Torino, even the Ferrari is not going to help me, right? So technique, as well as phrasing, as well as emotions, have to be guided to our aim. To really own something and translate it into music is not just executing. A lot of people can execute a lot of things, especially nowadays with all the schools. A lot of students execute. But most of those students cannot play music. I have students that have studied with everybody and for years, and they can execute a lot of stuff. When I have them play with musical records, most of them fail because they are not used to do that. They're just used to execute. Like, the drums was one thing and the music was another thing. Yeah. Does that make sense? Of course you say no. Everybody says no. But what we do sometimes, even though we think we say no, is saying yes. What I mean is that many times we do things without realizing it that are not going toward the right direction. That's what a good friend or a good teacher is for. As you see, and that's typical of me, I take one thing and I go somewhere else, because to me, again, music and life are the same. So when I talk about life, it comes naturally, I talk about drums. Notes are the last thing. Yeah. Everybody can play the notes. Everybody. Everybody's got books. Look at that. How many books? We have the same books. So it's the choices. Anyway, so what I liked about Freddie Gruber is that, or his system, is that it seemingly, even his more, his closer students don't really know exactly how he came out with this, because he liked to be mysterious about things. Of course, he was best friend with Buddy Rich, so Buddy Rich is a perfect example of the best working body possible. And with Philly Joe, and he studied with, Morris Goldberg, who was a great teacher. He studied with Gene Chapin when he was young, the Moeller technique. He studied with Henry Adler. So he did study technique. So he knew about what the technique experts or teachers, best teachers were teaching. In observing Buddy Rich or whatever was Buddy Rich that told him how to do things, I don't know, or being a dancer or being a genius or being whatever it was, he found out ways. And there was later on in his career, for what I understand, because we had to realize that when Dave Weckl or Steve Smith, or those guys, or Neil Peart went to study with Freddie Gruber, he had been teaching already at least 40 years. So that means he was really experienced. But for what I understand, talking to some of his previous students in the 60s or in the 70s, he was more average. Not average in what he taught, but you know, he had regular lesson with the exercises. He would go through different techniques, more in the style of Henry Adler. I don't know if you guys have watched this Henry Adler video that came out years ago, where Henry Adler teaches a guy, you know, a very old style, scolding him. No, what you doing? What you doing? So that was the way Gruber used to teach. But then it became more synthetic, you know, and much more metaphoric about things. So that's why it became, you know, it was very effective to high-level players, because to a lower-level players, what he was talking about wouldn't be
understood.
Everybody has seen the video where he does those crazy things, you know, and all that, you know. When I first saw that, I was curious about this Freddie Gruber that I heard about, and I got the Wackel DVD. Actually, it was VHS in 12 years ago, and I read cameo appearance from Freddie Gruber. Finally, and now Freddie Gruber. I go like. And after 2 minutes, the whole thing finished, and I'm like, disappointment. And many people that I know of, you know, have similar feelings attending his clinics, because it wasn't easy to understand what he was talking about. The fact that I was able to, you know, both study and talk with, you know, Steve Smith and Jojo and De Wackel especially, so they show me what he did with them, so what he did later on with high-profile music drummers, and also studying with Bruce Baker, who started with Gruber in the 70s when Bruce was 16. So I was working with beginners and with the top players. Steve Smith and Dave Wackel, they told me that they studied, they didn't take many lessons, but when they studied with Gruber through a period of 3 years, both of them. And when I started to study with Bruce Baker, it took me 3 years as well to put things together. But first, and this is the mysterious aspect of Freddie Gruber's teaching, what comes before even playing a rudiment. You know, he had a bunch of exercises just to set up your hand that nobody that I never saw, you know, none of my teachers told me about this thing. They didn't know about it. And there's no video with this stuff. So a lot of the beginning exercises now have to do with thumb control. Why? Because, you know, a stick is just what it is, a piece of wood. I can let the stick be free and cooperate with the stick in order to develop a flow of things, or I can, you know, muscle things, as Gruber would say, and do everything, or most of everything, myself. So, if the stick wants to fall, that means, of course, that we are talking about gravity. And if we are talking about gravity, you know, we don't need to do this to let the stick go through the drum. And if we talk about, you know, what Wackel calls the action-reaction, so the rebound, in other words, we don't need to do this that much to have the stick come up. So this up and down thing is obviously a weight shifting kind of approach, where this is no weight shifting. The weight is all in the tip all the time. And to have some kind of chops, I need to use my finger a lot. But it's basically always going to the tip. In Gruber's approach, you go to the tip, but you go to the back part, to the back end of the stick. So, as he says, you can play games with this. And, you know, he does this in a video. The stick becomes this, if I can do it at all, with this stick, which is not, well, okay, as opposed to this. And one thing that he says that I really like, he says, if you can, you know, develop this within yourself or your body, then you are in touch with the way everything is. And he talks about there's no straight lines and all that. So, so a lot of exercises that you do at first, or things like this. You know, they work with separate part of the hand, you know. And at first you don't know why do you do it. And he wouldn't tell you. You know, the Waco showed me this exercise that Gruber gave him. And he told me that, you know, he said, Freddie, what is this for? And he answered, you figure it out. You know, he would never tell you what you do, why you do things, but he would just give you, okay, do this. You know, now that I know the exercise, I like to, you know, explain students why, to some extent. But, exercises like this that work with different parts of your hand, they make your hand reactive to the stick. Because the hand is not just, let's think about the guitar or the piano or the violin. We don't think as one piece, but we think as different parts. Drummer, okay, this is how you hold the stick. Paradiddle, stick control, and you start phrasing. So that's what technique is. It's before phrasing. Teachers and students, when they talk about technique, they're really talking about phrasing. A paradiddle is not technique, it's a phrase. So Gruber would teach you, or the very good hand teachers, they would work on the moves that later will become a paradiddle. Like, can I have another stick? So I don't use more than two usually. Like if you did something like this, will later on become like this, or